Today's video is brought to you by govern365.com, the #1 Microsoft 365 data room solution using Govern365.
In this episode, I'm going to take you on a journey inside Entra ID's Conditional Access feature. We're going to talk about exactly what it is, how it works, and more importantly, what it can do for you and your career. Greetings YouTubers, welcome to the channel. Andy here, so nice to see you. I really do appreciate your support and visiting my channel, especially, hey, if this is your first visit. Now, on today's episode, I thought I'd take a look again at Microsoft Entra ID's Conditional Access feature. And we're gonna really take a step back at it. And we're gonna talk about exactly what it is, and more importantly, exactly how it works. Zero Trust is a super important component of Microsoft security, and it's important that we don't look at it from the traditional IT perspective. So modern security, we assume that we've been breached, we verify explicitly, and of course we create this defense in-depth model. Now, a modern security is essentially using next generation AI and machine learning. So modern conditional access looks for signals. So is the user a member of a group? Is the user using a specific device in a specific location in order to access a specific app? If these signals ring true and the conditions are met, the user will either be granted access or denied access. But you can also put other things in there as well. So if the user is granted access, they are required to use MFA, for example, multi-factor authentication. In addition, you can also control the session as well. So how long it is before the user is re-prompted before they log in. Can the user download content? Can they do screenshots? And so on. These are some of the real power behind the likes of conditional access, and it's such an important technology. So if you're using Entra ID P1 subscription that comes of course with Business Premium and some of the enterprise plans, then you get conditional access by default. Now if you're not using it, this is something that you definitely want to look at. Now in the demo, I'm going to show you both conditional access and also how it can integrate with something called identity protection. And identity protection really is a kind of next generation step up from things like regular identity management. So it looks for things like unusual user behavior, unusual activities, logging in from undisclosed locations or accessing resources really that they shouldn't have access to. So it's quite an in-depth demo. I'm going to time code the demo so you can move through it at your pace. All right. Now, if you have questions and comments about this or any of my other sessions, then get those comments down below. And as always, I'll do my best. And if you're not a member of my Patreon site, then please take a look here with a little subscription. Show me a little love, and I will grant you access to a lot of exclusives, including deep dive content, which is not available for a general public. So definitely take a look at that. It's really worth it. Okay, so I think without any further ado, let's jump in and have a look at conditional access. So beginning, I'm going to kick off here in the Entra Admin Center, and I'm going to come down to the Protection tab. I'm going to click on Show More Policies. Now, before I give you a demo of conditional access, I just want to go in and briefly mention identity protection here. Identity protection, or Entra ID Identity Protection, is a fantastic AI and machine learning product for verifying risky user activity. So you can come into the user risk policy. You can place your users, whether it be a selection of users or just a few, and you can assign them a risk. Based on that risk, if the system detects any kind of anomalies, you can either block access or allow access and require a password change. In addition, you can also look at the user account from their sign-in risk policy basis. So again, you can specify the users or groups. Again, you can assign a sign-in risk, and based on that sign-in risk, you may prompt them to say, okay, I need more information, and that's when that multi-factor authentication kicks in. So risk is a super important component here. Now, based on that, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to come back into my identity. I'm going to come back into protection. And in here, I'm going to then go and look at conditional access. So here in my conditional access policies, there's maybe a few things that you want to do in order to get started. Now, first up, you'll see that we have a nice overview page, which gives you a little bit of a tutorial on how to implement conditional access. And these will take you through some nice articles on learn.microsoft.com. In addition, you get a tenant overview of exactly where you're up to and where you are, what exactly is being covered by conditional access, and you can also switch on monitoring. Now, one of the things you can do with conditional access is you can enable it in monitoring mode. That means it's not enforcing the policies, it's just monitoring them. And this is particularly useful for trying out new policies. Likewise, you can also go to the tutorials page. And here in the tutorials page, you'll see that there's lots of not just documents, but also really useful videos and training on the Microsoft site here for that. So definitely check this out. Now, I'm going to create a policy. Now, just to mention before I create a policy, there's a couple of things. Do you use a terms and conditions in your company? So depending on where you are in the world, you may want your users to say, yes, I agree to your terms and conditions. So just to show you how this works, you simply give it a name, you upload a current PDF of your terms and conditions. Once that's in, you can then specify whether you want your users to accept them just once or accept them every time that they go in. You can also tie this in to a conditional access template, which is what we're going to look at. So, conditional access, terms of use. In addition, the other thing you might want to consider is, are you using remote locations, or do you have remote locations within your company? So, for example, I'm currently working in Norway, and so I might want to create a named location of Norway. You can also base it not simply on country or geolocation, but you can also base it on IP address range. And fairly new, we've now got IPv4 as well as IPv6. Now, the other thing that you can also do, you can configure multi-factor authentication based on the authenticator's IP address, particularly useful when we had COVID, or if your users are working from home. Very useful. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the named location and the terms of use. So as I've mentioned, you can create policies from either from scratch, so I can simply go into policy here, or you can click on the new template feature. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to click on new policy, and in here I'm going to call this my Oslo Marketing HR. So I'm going to call this my Oslo Marketing CA policy, Conditional Access Policy. Now I can specify the first signal. So do you want to look for users? So is it going to be all users or select users and groups? And this can be guest users who are visiting your network. They might be users that have or are enjoying particular directory roles. So again, administrators. Another one is teams and groups. So again, you might want to set this up so it's for a particular group. So for example, in this example, you can see that I'm setting up, let's say, let's go for the sales group. Okay, so I'm going to just hit that and I'm going to hit the sales group, and now it says, okay, which team? So in this case, I'm going to choose, let's say, I'll just say sales and marketing. All right, that's my first signal. You can also exclude certain users here as well. Target resources. So are you creating a policy for a specific app, so a cloud app, or is it for all cloud apps? Now, you can choose a specific app. Now, in terms of the session controls, ladies and gentlemen, some of these will only work if you have all cloud apps selected. And we're talking about browser cookies, because sometimes cookies cannot differentiate between one app and all apps. Yes, so you may find that some don't work. The other thing that we've also got is you have a filter. Now, the only issue I have with this filter is that you have to be a member of the attribute administrators group. So you need to be, if you want to create security attributes, you can do that, but you need to be a member of that group. And I'm planning to cover that in a future session. Okay, so I'm going to choose all cloud apps here. Now, the other thing that we've also got that's new is you can choose cloud apps, a user action, particularly useful if this is integrated into a third-party HR application. We've also got the new GSA. This is Global Secure Access, and at the moment we only have one policy, which is Microsoft 365 traffic. So you could say basically anybody going into Microsoft 365, I need you to be able to multi-factor authentication in if you're a member of that security group. For this purpose, I'm just going to keep it simple. So I'm just going to say cloud apps, and I'm going to say all cloud apps in this example. So based on those signals, they have to then meet these conditions. Is the user considered risky? Remember this? So if the user is considered medium, or in this case high risk, and they're using these device platforms, so we can say either any device except, so I can click in here and I can exclude, and I can say except Android. All right, so click on next. You can also create locations. So often if you're in a work scenario or work trusted location, one of the last things that you want is to be constantly prompted for multi-factor authentication. So here you can exclude, for example, certain locations. So I can simply go into the browser here, and in here I can specify any locations or names of locations that I've created. Now, in this case, I've not really created any, so we'll keep it nice and simple. So the other thing that you can also do is I can go into client apps here, and I can say, yep, I want to configure client apps. We essentially have 4 options here. So am I using a web browser? Yes, obviously. Am I using mobile apps and desktop clients? So for example, your iPhone, your Android, and so on. Legacy authentication clients. So these are old, and one of the problems with older authentication methods is that they often bypass or can potentially bypass modern security controls, such as multi-factor authentication. So, but you can switch off those old legacy clients. Now make sure, of course, that this is not going to disrupt any of your service. And one of my favorites, sorry, just save that. One of my favorites is the ability to filter for devices. So with a filtering for device, again, you can choose any of the device filters. So for example, if I say, let's say the manufacturer, I can say equals or ends with, so I'll say equals Dell, okay? And you could then carry on, and is a model equals XPS and so on. And that would essentially mean only these models and devices can be used on the platform. How cool is that? That is such a nice feature. Now, as I mentioned, you can also come in, I can exclude a specific location. So if, for example, I want to exclude, for example, any trusted locations that I may have created here. So Norway, UK, whatever. At the moment, I don't have any. But you can exclude that. What that does, that excludes that anybody that's being hit by that conditional access policy doesn't need to worry about multi-factor authentication because you're already in a trusted location. Now that we've done that, the next thing then, what about client apps? So again, I'm using modern browser, modern mobile apps. I'm not using those old cloud apps. So things like Exchange, things like the older Microsoft Office clients, I'm not using those. So again, I'm reducing the risk for the system. Finally, we come down, those are the signals. So finally, we come down to access control, and I'm going to basically say, yes, I'm going to grant access, but I'm also going to require multi-factor authentication here. And again, it really depends on the sensitivity of your data as well. Just before we continue, I've got to reach out and say a big thank you to today's sponsor for sponsoring this video.
This video is sponsored by Govern365, the ultimate solution for secure collaboration, virtual data rooms, and compliance in Microsoft 365. Brought to you by the geniuses at NetWoven, this game-changing tool simplifies and automates data protection in both SharePoint and Teams using Microsoft Purview sensitivity labels, while providing a powerful and highly customizable template-driven provisioning process, deep content inventory reporting, and powerful workspace recertification with smart disposition. Contact Govern365 today for a demo or to start a trial at govern365.com.
You can also come down here. There are additional options here, so you can set that up. And if I just click on OK here, there we go. Now you can see at the moment this system is designed for reporting only mode, and this is almost kind of a try before you buy type scenario. So if I click on update the policy goes through. You can see that the marketing policy has come in, and that is now live. So with this in mind, the next thing that you might want to do, you might want to create a policy from a template. So again, here we have quite a few diverse different templates, and they're all in, as you can see, different categories. So for example, we have a category here for zero trust, and then I can say, yep, I'm happy with that. I'm going to create that. And you can see, you can set it up initially in reporting mode, and this really can prevent a number of potential disasters. All right, so that is the authentication logins there. So as I said, we've done the template. So as I said, you can use any of these templates here. They're really, really simple to use. Take a look at what's included in the content. I think you'll find it super useful when you begin to use it. In that you can come in here and you can basically set a user or a workload that's being hit by conditional access, what IP address are they using, what app you're only going to try and see what they're using. And you can set these settings up here. Click on verify, and what it will then do is it will use a what if scenario to basically say, if you do these settings to these users in conditional access, then this potentially is what could happen. So in addition to the what if tool, you can also come into conditional access, and we have a number of reporting mechanisms that you can use as well. So you've got sign-in logs here as well. So if I come into the sign-in logs, you can see not just who's actually signing in, but you can also see where they're coming in from, the name of the device that they're using, how they're authenticating, and if conditional access is hitting their account, you'll see it here. Now, in addition, remember the reporting only option, you can see that here. So any reporting only option reports, they will go in here. And again, super useful and super important that you know how that works. So there you have it, conditional access with a little bit of Entra ID Identity Protection thrown in for good measure. I really hope that you enjoyed that. Now, if you did, please bang that like button up there. It does make a difference to the channel. And if you have any questions, I love those. Just get those down below. If you want to show me a little more love, and I hope that you do, why not consider signing up to my Patreon site? Details are here. Again, from a little love from you, you'll get access to some real exclusives. All right, that's it for today. I'll see you next time. Take care. Hey, thanks so much for dropping by today. Here's a couple of videos that you may enjoy, and while you're here, go ahead, click on the subscribe button and you won't miss out.